Ruslan.
Couple days ago today, not really sure, Kurt Franklin dropped this podcast called Good Words with Kurt Franklin, interviewing Chance the Rapper. Very dope podcast. You should really check out the entire thing. It's on Spotify. I'm going to be giving my thoughts on it and 3 takeaways that I have from it. But top to bottom, this thing is super fire, and it reveals a lot about Chance's testimony, his approach to music, all these different things. So I'm going to be giving you guys my big 3 takeaways. I'm bummed out that there's no video version for this podcast. Kirk, my man, if you're watching this, holla at your boy. I'll get you set up, or I hope your team gets set up. There should be a video of this. I would have loved to see the video of this, but it's okay. We gonna work with the audio of this. Now, the first takeaway from this that I thought was crazy was Chance the Rapper teaching VBS. Do you guys know what VBS is? VBS is Vacation Bible School, okay? And I wanted to play this clip, react to it. This is Chance talking about his testimony and how he teach. I would have never thought I would see Chance the Rapper teaching VBS, and this is back to 2015. Check this part out.
So,
boy, what you know about VBS? What you know about that, boy?
I run a VBS. You remember you called in and talked to my students one time. I've been.
Oh, yeah.
So Chance runs a VBS. Kurt Franklin apparently called in and talked to Chance's students at one time. Wild.
Okay.
So I took over in 2015. So we've been running it for 5 years. But she started it in the 70s, and so since I was a little kid, we would go up to the church. I wasn't like the kids that was there every day. Like, I wasn't going there on Wednesdays and Thursdays and all the other stuff, but I was up at the church at least 2 days a week, and then I spent all my summers at the church. But I think it's a very, very different relationship when you come to find Jesus on your own, as opposed to just hearing about it from your grandmother, or being prayed over, or going to, Bible study or whatever. Like, when he comes to you, or when you find him, it's a very different relationship. So yeah, I knew Jesus when I was a kid, but I ain't know Jesus until I was probably 21 or 22.
Yeah, it's like rumors. You kind of heard that he was kind of like, you was like, oh, okay, yeah.
Oh yeah, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. Was there a point in your life where it got dark for you, or when it got difficult, where it became personal? Was there a moment where...
So, first of all, that's really cool. Like, Chance, imagine being like a kid pulling up to church, and Chance the Rapper, who's just on TV with, Justin Bieber, Kanye, and he's he's the Vacation Bible School teacher. Now, VBS is a week-long thing. My wife teaches it. We've done it at our church, multiple churches. It's very, very, very cool. So that's super dope. Yeah. Now check this out. Those of you guys that are listening to this and you're like, Chance hasn't showed repentance in his walk. Okay, we're going to get there. Just bear with me. I wanted just to open up to just highlight something that is very interesting regarding that. And so we're going to get into more of what he shares about his testimony. But I did want to share that. Now check this out. Kurt Franklin then takes the conversation regarding his testimony and more of that. So just listen up, and we're going to get into the areas that, he may be falling short in. But listen.
Like he knocked on your heart and kind of like an uppercut you in your chin. Like, was there a dark moment like that?
Yeah, it was a very dark moment. I don't want to get too deep with it. I'll tell it like...
get as deep as you want to. This is your big brother show.
The best way to describe it is there's a story of Jesus when Jesus was tempted in the desert, right? And so Jesus was brought after fasting all these days and walking through the desert. The devil came to him and basically tried to tempt the Lord, like in the flesh, and use his flesh against him, and tried to tempt him into turning these rocks into bread. And then he took him to the tip top and looked over the city and said, "You could have this whole world." And then told him to jump and asked him to get the angels to catch him. And he basically tried to tempt the Lord, right? Yeah. And Jesus being Jesus, he's infallible. So it didn't work on Jesus. And I think those same kind of temptations in terms of asking us in our most fleshly forms, we're not perfect. We're not the Son of God in the way that Jesus was.
Right.
We get tempted the same way. And I was in a moment where I was very scared and tempted and being shown the world. And the sheer fear that was on my heart caused me to kind of pull back into myself for a while.
Wow.
And it wasn't until I started to dig into the word that I started to feel less fearful about whatever this energy was that I ran into. And so, basically, I guess the best way to describe it is I was faced with the world on a golden platter, and the way that it was presented to me was so unpure that I could smell that it wasn't for me.
Woo! He said the way the world was presented to him on a golden platter, it was so unpure. It was so unpure that he knew it wasn't for him. That's really powerful. Imagining the access to excess, someone like a Chance who is, grows up Christian, has arguably one of the biggest platforms in the world, trying to figure it out. Some substance abuse, some trauma going on. He said he saw earlier in the interview, he really should have watched the entire interview. He said earlier in the interview that he saw his best friend get killed in front of him, which there's a degree of PTSD there. And he's navigating, and then he's catapulted to superstardom, and how he's walking through this entire process, trying to walk out his faith in the middle of being a massive celebrity. And I talk about it all the time. Access to excess. A lot of y'all got to be very careful what you're praying for. A lot of you guys got to be very careful that if you're praying for fame and success, it may not be what you think it is. And clearly in this case, it wasn't what the average person thinks it is, right? And it was something that was challenging for him, and it was something that was very difficult probably for him to walk through and to figure out. And I think it's a very interesting position that he's in as a Christian guy who grows up. However, he's dealing with drug addiction, right? And we're going to get into some of that here in a second. And so I would encourage you guys that, again, listen to the whole interview. Listen to the whole interview, because I think it'll really give you some good context. And those of you guys that have been following Chance will if you don't see the transformation in Chance, and I've been following him for years, right before acid rap, that there's something completely different about this dude. The other part I wanted to highlight is Chance's, this isn't in chronological order, meaning the flow of this is different than it was said, but I wanted to highlight this, and this is Chance talking about, on his interview with Kirk Franklin, and him talking about this position of being, classified as a gospel rapper, Christian rapper, not really aspiring for it, but not backing away from it, and how he believes he's different, and exactly the fact that he wasn't prepared for any of it, and what makes him different from a Kanye West. Again, check out the Good Words podcast with Kirk Franklin. I think this is really interesting. Listen up to this. Okay, check this out.
Question is, I want to know from you that when you started seeing headlines calling you a gospel rapper, did that scare the hell out of you? Because that's not what you were trying to do.
Yeah, it did. To be honest, it was I actually never wanted to be, at the time, or even I would say to this day, considered a gospel artist. Because when I think of the word gospel, I think of the gospel, or the good news, and my album, it was very far from what people were used to seeing in mainstream hip hop in terms of, being honest about my faith and stuff. But it still wasn't, like, to me, a gospel album. Kanye made a gospel album. His last album, to me, was fully in service of Christ. I think all my projects are me explaining where I'm at in life. So my last one was about getting married. The one before that was about me finding Christ. One before that was about me doing drugs. One before that was about being in high school and getting suspended. So it's like, I try and tell my story, and I think I still have an album in me that's going to be fully in service to Christ.
Woo! That's cool. Okay, so listen to what he's saying. Okay, he said that to him, a gospel album is something that is fully in service to Christ. He said Kanye's last album was a gospel album. He said, my albums are just a reflection of where I am in my life. Last album was about getting married. Those of you guys that are like, where's the fruit, Ruslan? Where's Chance the Rapper's fruit? It's in him getting married. How about that? How about this man was doing drugs before that album, gets married, and makes a whole album about being married and being a Christian. Yes, there's profanity on it, but by and large, goodness gracious, this man went from acid rap to, you know, The Big Day, which wasn't as dope artistically, if we're gonna be honest, but boom, there's the fruit. This man repented of his sexual immorality and married his long-term girlfriend, who, you know, is a Christian as well. So that right there is I don't know what else you want from fruit. You know what I'm saying? So back to this point though. Listen, this man is saying, hey, I never saw myself as a gospel artist or a gospel rapper because that is directly in service to Christ. Kanye does a gospel album. He says, I'm just a rapper who's rapping about my life. So when I was a kid on 10 day, suspended from school, that's what I rapped about. When I started experimenting with drugs, on acid rap, that's what I rapped about. When I started finding Christ in 2014, 2015, he said he came to Christ in 2015, I think he said, that's what I rapped about, right? And when I got married, that's what I rapped about. He said, I still have a gospel album in me. Really cool. That's super dope. And by gospel, he now is saying flat out like about Jesus and the way that this is different from, you know, his other work. But this is the question. This is the question I really have for a lot of you guys is, some of y'all get really mad when artists don't want to wear the label Christian rapper, Christian artist, gospel rapper, but he's telling you guys why. Because he's saying, listen, my albums are not in direct worship reflection to Jesus the way Kanye is. And so as a society, he's in a spot where he's too Christian for the world, because he's still going to talk about God, but he's too worldly for the Christians. And so he's in this weird in-between place. And so those of you guys that are here, like, would you him rather not say he's Christian and never talk about his faith? Or would you rather see the messy process of somebody that's wildly influential with immense access to access going through the process of sharing his light, sharing his life before the world? That's a really tough balance, right? Because some of you guys really want your Christian artists, your Christian influencers, your Christian, I don't know, athletes. You want them perfect. Like, you want them without any blemishes, any sin, and what you're really doing is you're idolizing people. You're putting them up to standards that you don't even hold yourself to, because you're looking at Chance and you're saying, oh, well, he had a line about this. And by the way, on this channel, I've historically called out all the inconsistencies in Chance, from the booty applaud line to the line about smoking weed on a holy song. Consistently, I have. But you want to elevate people to a platform that you're not even on. Like, you probably deal with some degree, I don't know, of profanity. Your web history probably doesn't look the cleanest, yet you have this expectation of artist he's in his early 20s. Like, this man is in his early 20s, and you want him to live to the standards of a pastor. So, serious question, would you rather someone in Chance's position just not talk about God at all, right? Because you're saying it's confusing and he doesn't show, you know, whatever evidence of repentance, or would you rather see the messy process? This is my issue with a lot of Christian hip hop in general, is you guys really want folks to, you guys really want to hold. He's in his late 20s now. He came to faith in his early 20s. That's what I'm saying, okay? Don't get the timelines confused. 2015 is when he says he accepted Jesus. He said he was 21, 22. Acid rap was already out. He was already popping, okay? The Coloring Book came out, I think, in 2016. He was already a megastar, all right? So just keep up with the timelines for me. So if we're talking about this man becoming one of the huge artists, would you rather him not talk about anything and just be quiet about his faith, or would you rather him share the messy journey and be willing to hop in conversations with the Eshawn Burgundy and go back and forth on scripture, who also called him out regarding the booty applaud line, right? I don't know. I don't know. How do we find that balance? But specifically in Christian music, Christian hip hop, you guys want to hold the RGs and the Hovies and these young guys to the standards of a freaking elder, like And an elder should be above reproach. He should blah, 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 blah. And it's like, fam, these are young kids. These are young rappers. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to get it wrong. They're going to drop the ball. Like, I think it's a very, very, very complicated thing. And I think a lot of times the fans and the consumer, you guys just hold artists to standards of elders and pastors. And they're not. That's not what they are. That's not what he set out to be. So something to think about. Now listen to him be vulnerable and talk about how he's dropped the ball. Like, there's no shame in him being transparent. Check this out.
Difficult that balancing act was?
I don't think so. I think I'm still unprepared. It's a daily fight, and there's all types of spiritual warfare within the industry that we work in. And so I think what I am able to do is I've been blessed with good discernment, I think, to a certain extent, to be able to kind of just see what I should be doing and what I shouldn't be doing. But also, yeah, it's God is absolute. So it's like he's absolute in his forgiveness, but he's also absolute in the fact that he gave us the information that we needed. And so
That's good.
I think I'm trying, I don't know. I'm still figuring this stuff out and still battling with just outside of music, like watching my mouth and watching, how I react to things. And it's a daily battle. But I think I was in that same regard. I feel like
He said it's a daily battle. He's still figuring it out. He's still talking about watching his mouth, right? I bet you a lot of the critiques that I've said on songs like Holy, him referencing weed, all these different things, I bet you he would agree with me. Like, yeah, I probably shouldn't have said that, right? But that's interesting that he's self-aware enough to say, hey, guys, I'm still working through this stuff. I'm still figuring it out, right?
I don't always have the same tools or the same resources or the same outlook or the same feeling or spirit every day, but I feel like, God's not going to give me more than I could bear. And so I just got to look for the tools that Jesus has given me in the moment so I could get through. And I feel like that's like my everyday battle.
Sheesh.
And you talking about one of those tools being discernment. How
This is really good at getting to discernment right here.
one cultivate?
This is like a real practical nugget for a lot of us.
How can a person cultivate discernment, or is that a spiritual gift?
I think to a certain level it's a spiritual gift because I think the only way to really tone it or work that muscle is to be in the Word. And
The only way to tone it and work that muscle is to be in the Word. Come on, Chancellor.
try and learn the Word.
Learn the Word.
Necessarily have the Word right in front of me, but he gave me the Word, and then as I went through it, I picked up my book, and then it's right there. It's like, this is what you're living through. And so I think it's both sides. It's something that it's a skill that you have to, just like you go to the gym, you got to work out. But it's also, I think God, he blesses people. That's just a true thing. There's people in the Bible that were blessed. And
Wow. So that's really dope. Okay, so the tension of being a Christian and in music while not having it all together and still wrestling with stuff like drug addiction and your mouth and all these different things, right? While saying, yeah, and I'm pressing more into the Word. Why? Because I need to grow in discernment. And it's not just a spiritual gift that some people have. Sometimes it's like that, but other times you need to learn that Word and you need to understand what God's ways are so you can walk in God's will. I thought that was awesome. I thought that was really good. And I think that's a very, very good gauge in terms of just how spot on he is with this stuff. And so I appreciate the honesty. I appreciate the vulnerability. I think he, in his position, is doing the best that he can. And I'm excited to see where Chance is when he's 30, right? Like, where is Chance when he's my age? Like, I'm 36, okay? Guys, just so we're clear, like, I've been walking with Jesus since I was 17, actively in ministry, actively preaching. There was no sabbaticals, there was no time off consistently. I don't know if I would have handled everything that he's had to go through as well as he has. And I'm not saying he did it perfectly, but that's why I think we miss it is some of y'all are really thinking that you get saved and your life is perfect. That's just not how it works. And if you get saved and then there's access to excess and there's fame and there's all kinds of access to stuff that you didn't have before, it's a tough journey. So in that, I would hope that we would all have a little bit of grace on Chancellor as he's trying to figure this thing out. The third part of this interview that I thought was extremely awesome with Kurt Franklin and Chance the Rapper on Good Words podcast, Kurt Franklin's podcast, was Kurt Franklin getting Chance's opinion on mega church pastors, on preachers and sneakers, and on some... Yo, this part right here is hilarious. Now, guys, he's gonna say a tad bit of profanity here, so just brace yourself. Some of you guys get really sensitive about that. But I think in the context, I think it's hilarious. So check this out. This is Chance and Kurt Franklin specifically alluding to sneakers, was it Preachers and Sneakers, that Instagram, specifically, and what his thoughts are on mega church pastors and all that kind of stuff. Check this out.
His blood is red. His blood is red.
Yeah, at the end of the day, like, he died for me, so I'm not tripping.
Yeah, that's what's good. Chance, do you think that we're trying too hard to make Jesus cool to culture?
That's a great question. Do you think we're trying too hard to make Jesus cool to culture?
I think so.
Like, you know, yeah. Because the bottom line is, you're talking about a guy that was born by a virgin, you know, mom and daddy didn't have sex. You know what I'm saying? Riding on donkeys that talk, turning water into wine, taking a ham sandwich and feeding thousands of people on a mountain. You know, all this stuff that people are like, bro, please, come on.
Right.
You know, do you think that we're trying too hard?
Hold on. So this is a great question. This is a fair question. And I honestly, Kurt Franklin, who I think is very, I think is very cool in his methodology. I think it's really interesting for him to ask that. So listen to Chance's answer on this.
Too hard. I think that we could try the wrong way sometimes, you know?
I don't think we're trying too hard. I think we try the wrong way sometimes.
At the end of the day, you could teach people a million things, but until God works on their heart, they're not going to be able to accept Jesus. So I feel like I've been in positions where, not even from a music standpoint, but just like in conversations, like, you know, when you're and Kanye just went through this, so like I got to see it on somebody else. When Jesus first comes and reveals himself to you, then you got to tell everybody, and you got to call out everybody on what they not supposed to do, and you got to tell them, see, that's God, you know? And you eventually, I think everybody, they start to pull back.
Because so he's saying when Kanye came to Christ, he wants to tell everybody all the things they're doing wrong. And then you read the book of 1 Corinthians, specifically chapter 5, and you realize that it's not really your business to be telling folks who don't know God, holding them to non-Christian standards. And that's a whole other thing. We've talked about this at length. Read the whole book of 1 Corinthians, okay? And so that's interesting. And some of y'all are still in that place. Like, some of you guys still think you're like fruit inspectors. Some of you guys think you're like my accountability partner over the comment section. Some of you guys think you're people's Lecrae's accountability partner over the comment section. You're new to the faith. You're radical, and you're just super passionate and zealous. It's interesting that he points that out.
To understand, like, that's not the way. But, like, I had a long time where, like, any kind of thing that I could even think that went against the Bible, I was ready to get into a debate real quick. And I had to realize, like, you can't debate somebody into accepting Christ. Like, you have to wait on the Spirit to move on them. And so I think our job is to still spread the good news, because we are tools of Christ. We are God's children that have been blessed to know the word. And so we have to keep singing his praise. We have to keep spreading the good news. But I think we just have to be careful in how we do it, and not in a way that, alters his word or, does anything that's not, But I think what we're doing is right. I think we're supposed to be talking about what he did and what he does.
Yeah. And I do agree with you that maybe we, as leaders, we may have to come back and really reassess that. Maybe, trying to have the freshest sneaks around y'all and trying to have the dopest drip around y'all. Maybe
it'd be a little too much.
Here's the preachers and sneakers conversation. Listen up.
Share that with me a little bit. How does that feel? No. Like on God, like just right now, just on God. Chance. So when you see a Christian preacher or pastor or gospel artist try to rock with you, Shit. Give me some. Talk more about that, bro. Don't play with it. Come on, give it to me. And be 100. Keep it a buck, too.
I think, okay, so this is me keeping it 1,000 with you right now. I think sometimes when you see a pastor on stage that's telling you about Jesus, who, even if you don't know Jesus, you know that he was the only king that was born in a manger and some straw in a box.
So interesting that Chance goes into Jesus being born in a manger and more or less alludes to the fact that Jesus was not rich, which is, you would think that he would be, or people, the perception would be like, oh, he's a celebrity, he has bad doctrine, he's on a prosperity kick, and it's totally opposite of that. Listen up.
You know that he's the king that didn't ride a horse and rode a donkey. You know that he was poor.
Yes.
You know that he was poor. Interesting.
And so when you see somebody that's giving you the word, if they're not extremely humble, if they're not extremely meek, even someone that's not used to being in that space or doesn't super know Christ, I think sometimes it feels like it's conflicting ideas, though it may not be.
Though it may not be. It seems like it's conflicting ideas, though it may not be.
Probably bless them with all the things that they have. I think that sometimes there could be a little dissonance. And I think I'm only saying that because I've noticed people notice it.
When you and your, should I say, mainstream friends, when y'all look at some of the people that try to be around you that rep the church, you're saying that a lot of you and your friends don't see these people as people that you want to trust your heart with.
So I think I'm different. I live in Chicago. Like, I'm afraid of going to mega churches. Like,
I'm afraid of going to mega churches. You would think that Chance was just chilling at a mega church. This is interesting.
I've been for a long time. So I live in a different thing, you know. I think when I go to LA and my friends want me to go to their church, that's like one of the first things that I notice is like, this nigga got a chain on? Like, you know, it's like but that's me. And I gotta also, like, my wife tells me about it. She's like, you gotta, like, work on your heart, because you're supposed to hear the word. You don't need to look at him to get the word. And so I think that might be me. But my friends, for the most part, they are, you know, I don't think that they see a problem with it because they live in LA also. So, like, they hang out with their pastors outside of church. They all drive the same kind of cars. Their churches are way, way bigger, too. The churches are like, they fit thousands of people. And so I think it's like they're used to it, and that might be what LA needs. And I've gotten a good word. I went to Torres Church one time and got a real good word. I wish that I could remember it right now.
Wow. So that's interesting. So he said... He said, this N-word got a chain on right now. Yo, that's interesting. But there is this thing. Those of y'all that come out to, you go to New York, you go to LA, the culture is just different, right? And obviously you got the Preachers and Sneakers, which I'm supposed to have the homie from Preachers and Sneakers on the channel soon. They sent me in advance of his book. But it's just a very interesting time. So it's very interesting to hear someone like Chance say, yeah, I'm not really on the mega church thing, and saying more or less that it's a stumbling block for him. Like, he's saying, I'm watching some of these guys and I'm like, yo, this fool got a chain on, like, you know, it's a little over the top. And he's saying there's nothing wrong with it inherently, but just the fact that it's happening is interesting, and it makes him uncomfortable. And he said his wife would have to then tell him, hey, like, it's not about the person preaching, it's about the word. That's really interesting. Now, I don't have a problem with folks wearing nice shoes and, you know what I'm saying? That whole thing. I think I have nice shoes. I got Yeezys and Jordan 14s and the whole bit, right? I think that the issue comes into the context and the appearance of it. And when, you know, dudes is running around with $1,000 shoes, $1,500, you know, $1,500, $2,000 shoes. It's a very interesting balance to have, right? So there's nothing wrong with having nice stuff, but can that be a barrier to entry for some people to check you out and to listen to you? It's a very interesting conversation in light of culture, in light of stuff like Preachers and Sneakers, in light of celebrity Christianity and what you would or wouldn't think that. So I think it's very interesting. I'm curious to hear from what you guys think. Hopefully listen to Chance's entire interview. Shout out to, Good Words with Kurt Franklin. Super dope podcast. I was extremely edified. They go into the church being used to activate more social causes and how it was back in the day and this whole thing. And so I thought it was super dope. I think it's a really good listen. I encourage you to check it out. All right.
Kingstream Entertainment. Ruslan.
Joshua the King came down and bore it all. Yeah. Conversations front of the fireplace. All of my mistakes, how do I erase? Wanna operate at a higher pace. Birth pains causing the body to dilate. On a first name basis with the worst pain facing. Moments